welcome to another American Scouser podcast, another one of our Spotlight podcasts. And today we have Kendra with us from the Raleigh Sporter Club, and he is the president of the Sporter Club. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. As I look at your guys' group and read more and more, sounds like you guys are one of those substantial groups that are actually has been established for quite a few years. We do a lot of these podcasts with fairly new groups, and you guys have been around for a while. But as always, let's start with you first, I guess. If you want to kind of tell us how long you've been a Liverpool fan, how you came about being a Liverpool fan.
Sure. Yeah, been a soccer player all my life, playing through the late 70s, early 80s, through college and whatnot. But back then, the not a whole lot for a young American kid to root for in terms of soccer. They didn't really have much out there. But going into high school, I kind of picked up on music with Pink Floyd was one of my favorite bands, and it's kind of interesting that I was really drawn to their music. And I came across a song called "Fearless," which is off of an old album from the '70s. And at the end of the song, it really resonates. As the song fades out, it kind of fades into the cops singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" to the players on the pitch, and you can clearly tell it's at a football match. And in my mind, I could visualize, the scene. And I always said, man, that's what I want to play in front of. I want to play in front of that crowd. And so that always been a dream of mine to say, if I was ever to become a professional footballer, that would be where I would want to be. And obviously it didn't take much to figure out that was Liverpool fans serenading their players. So I kind of globbed onto that. And then as the content became available, with television became more accessible, I just naturally just said, I'm going to be a Liverpool fan. And it's all, comes down to Pink Floyd, which is kind of bizarre to say that, but yeah, so that's my story. And then, I was living in New Jersey in the turn of the century, and they came to Giant Stadium in 2004 to play a preseason match. And I was dating my wife at the time, and I told her, I said, hey, I'm going up to Giant Stadium. I'm going to go watch a soccer match. She was like, what are you talking about? And I said, this team Liverpool. So I bought one ticket for myself, and I just drove up. I lived less than an hour away. And she was like, okay, well, whatever. So, but that turned out to be Michael Owen's last game wearing Liverpool, but before he went on to Real Madrid. But in any event, that's kind of my story, and just kind of picked it up from there, and just continue as like I said, as it became more accessible with television and internet and everything else. It was easier for us to consume, and just was a natural fit for me, and fell in love with the club and everything that it stands for.
That's awesome. And then, so, obviously then you moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. Is that a different atmosphere in terms of, the fandom, in terms of the Liverpool Reds fans? Or, were you too new of a fan when you were in New Jersey to even connect with other Reds fans?
No, when I was living up in New Jersey, I didn't really try to connect with a whole lot of other fans. I really was unaware of the culture. Social media hadn't really taken off as much back then. I can still remember in 2005 when the Istanbul match, I was actually out running errands, and I didn't tell my wife, but I said, I'm going to swing off by the local Irish pub and see if they had the match on. And you walk in there, and it had a decent crowd, but there wasn't like an official club or maybe a handful of Scousers there watching the match. And I all nearly left at halftime because I was like, well, I got other crap to do, and I got to get home and whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Jeez.
And I said, well, let me just stick around. And let me just watch a little bit. And then obviously, saw the first couple goals go in. I was like, all right, I'm staying, But yeah, so the culture was it was more casual. There wasn't like an organized structure behind it. I was totally unaware. I now know that the New York City had an active supporters club for a while at that point, but I didn't kind of reach out to that, and there was kind of a void in the New Jersey market there. But moving down to North Carolina in 2007, obviously still had a love for Liverpool, and the actual club of the Raleigh group. There were Raleigh Reds that were watching Liverpool well long before we kind of formally established our our organizational structure. But they were kind of just meeting together in bars, 4 or 5 at a time. And it wasn't until 2012 when my brother, who happens to live in New England, is also a big Liverpool fan. Me and him decided we were going up to Boston for Fenway when they were playing AS Roma, and that was on a Wednesday. And we ended up going to the pub. Back then it was Antua Nua, I guess, which was kind of a satellite pub for the Boston group. And we were just we got there early enough, and we just kind of were sitting around on the booth, and a couple of guys kind of sat next to us, and we started talking to them and just getting to know these guys. And they said, "Oh, you're from Raleigh. We got a couple friends from Raleigh. They're going to be with us in about an hour." So they came to, it was Darren Bridger and Colin Russell. And those two guys are Darren actually just said, "Hey, I just opened up a pub, the London Bridge Pub, with my business partner. And y'all gotta come to watch the matches at my pub." And of course, Colin was like, "Yeah, we'll start a Facebook page. Let's get a group together, And I said, "Sure, I'll come down to the next match. During the season, I'll make my way down there." So it kind of all started just by happening to meet those guys. Luckily, just in the same general vicinity of a pub that we just from the same hometown. And there had already been pockets of Liverpool fans in Raleigh, but once we got the social media, connection started with Facebook and everything else, and word started getting out, and people started coming to London Bridge Pub, and we established ourselves pretty strongly at that point.
I mean, it sounds like actually you guys kind of like, in a way, eliminated the toughest parts of finding a location by that. Because as I talk to other like supporter clubs, it sounds like one of the biggest hurdles is finding a bar to open up for games and stuff like that. Looks like you guys had that out of the way early.
Yeah, and Raleigh is a smaller town than most of the bigger cities, obviously, and the marketplace and whatnot. But there had been a void of football pubs per se, and Darren and his partner Mike Ruiz, they saw an opportunity, and when they opened up their pub, they just went into business for themselves and said, let's do this. They saw the opportunity to kind of make it into a football pub, and we happened to be obviously all Liverpool fans, so it was easy for us. The hard part for us wasn't necessarily getting started and finding the pub, which is it's hugely important to have that connection and to have that liaison, if you will. But the hard part for us now is that is they're running a business, right? And so they're our friends and they're our partners from that regard, but they're running a business and we're just running a club, and we cannot tell them what to do, but they are running their business to grow, and they're turning it into one of the top soccer pubs in the state, if not the best. But that also means they welcomed in the Arsenal club we're looking for a home, so that there's other supporters clubs that want to come, and they say, well, we should go to the London Bridge Pub because it's got a great environment, it's got great staff, they know it, they get it. Some of the other pubs that have other clubs in the Raleigh area have had their home pubs, and they said it kind of sucks in that when the game's over, everyone goes home and then college football goes on. Where at London Bridge Pub, it's pretty much everyone's hanging out and talking about the matches, and 2:00, comes around, and there's maybe a Spanish game on, so they'll put the La Liga match on, or whatever the case may be. So they're doing a really good job of making a name for themselves. So that's the challenge we're faced with, is trying to say, hey guys, don't forget we were here with you guys at the beginning, right? So, we had a situation, not a situation, not the right way to say, but we had an event last year where we were running our annual holiday party, and we just scheduled it. We just pick a date in December for the best, most convenient time for that fits our schedule. So we picked it for the Everton match, which was a great match to do it for us. The downside was that the early kickoff that day was Tottenham versus Arsenal. And of course, now we're at the same pub with the Arsenal Supporters Club, and they're already packing the pub for their match. And so we are trying to pack, get our supporters in, and we're like, next thing you know, it's just a massive amount of people. And it was an interesting challenge that we learned from. So now, of course, we do a little bit better research before we schedule our holiday party, make sure that we're not making that same mistake. But but yeah, so we did get that out of the way early. They've been fantastic partners. Anyone that comes to the Raleigh area, if you're going to watch any soccer match, you got to go down to London Bridge Pub because it's really, truly the only place to watch it.
That's very unique actually, because I think most of the, like I said, the sport clubs, the challenge is, they're in a football town, or they're like in a, even worse, a college football town, where once it's like noon and stuff, it's college football time, and it's like a huge conflict between maybe like somebody regular who comes to the pub bar who wants to watch college football, like compared to like the Reds fans. So you guys are still sharing the same location with Arsenal?
We do, but they've been able to expand their footprint to the bar next door, take out a wall, and so now they have technically two bars, but with a little wall that connects the two. So we relegate the Arsenal fans to the second side that doesn't have as many TVs and doesn't have the atmosphere that we have. So it typically is not an issue because we're actually very good friends with a lot of the Arsenal Gooners. They're the one thing that we all kind of invite is just a welcome environment. I mean, we'll have Chelsea fans come, a couple of them. We'll have a couple of Man United fans there, and as long as everyone keeps it calm and collected, we've got really good camaraderie. So, but yeah, the Arsenal fans are great, and they were our second biggest fans for the Champions League final. I mean, they didn't want to see Spurs win it, so they had their whole club there, cheering us on. So it was awesome.
Yeah, I think especially in the States, there's like a automatic, camaraderie between fans of the sport because it's not as popular. So when you have somebody else who's into soccer, automatically there's a bond there, regardless of which team, because you're still the minority, like trying to get the sport being popular. So I'm sure it helps. And like you're saying, as long as, people can keep it under control, I'm sure there's like isolated incidents here and there, but that's going to happen. If you even get a fun, a pub full of Reds fans, there's always going to be somebody.
And typically we've seen it's it's usually knock on wood here, but it's usually alcohol induced. It's usually someone's had a little bit too much, someone's had a bad day, and someone says one thing that takes out of context. But for the most part, we don't have any situations where guys are intentionally just coming in and just trying to raise hell, but it's very friendly, and like you said, because at the end of the day, we're all football fans, and and we can all kind of agree that we're in the minority in the country, and it's a growing sport, but at least you have a place to go watch it, and at London Bridge Pub they have dozens of TVs, so they're always going to have matches on, and that's one of the best days is when the last game of the season, when all 10 matches are going on simultaneously. You can go there and find all 10 matches on somewhere. So yeah, it's just a good environment, and they do a good job of policing it. If there are guys that are tough troublemakers, like I said, we're a small town, right away that certain guys are not invited back, so to speak. So
you're like, he's here.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's very unique, actually. You guys are pretty lucky in that sense to have almost like a sports-specific bar, because, like I say, in most cases, I think it's being shared with like other sports, and most bars kind of almost use it as like an additional revenue to be able to open in the morning and get business when they normally would not. So that's very unique, and actually, yeah, you guys are pretty lucky with that, to be honest.
Yep.
So what made you decide to make it official and say, hey, you know what, it's time, or what, I guess what went into the decision-making process?
So that's actually a kind of an interesting story. It was fall of 2013, and full disclosure, I actually happened to live in a different county, about 45 minutes drive to downtown Raleigh. But I would drive down for the matches because some of these guys became my best friends, and I just love the environment of going down there. So I just remember going down there one time, and people kept talking about, when I say people, the guys that I met, the Colin Russells and Sean Dotsowers, I got to give a shout out to him. He's, another one of the original members. And we're all sitting there saying, God, we looked online, and, the requirements say we need to have 15 of this and 50 of that. And we need to do this. We should go for an official. And I was like, well, why do we want to become official? What's the big deal? And they said, for us, it was more collectively decided. We just want the world to recognize Raleigh as a Liverpool town, that we had something special there with the pub and the environment. And as we grew, and we were getting 50, 60, 70 people in 2013, before we made the big run with Brendan Rodgers, that we were building something, and I think they wanted to be recognized. And so the funny part about the whole thing was, the one next week I came in and I said, guys, I did a little research. I looked and said, we need to do this. We need to come up with a charter. We need to come up with a website. We need to do this. We need to do all these little things. These are little check boxes that have to happen. So, and then who's going to do it? And everyone just kind of looked at each other and just like, I don't know. I don't have time to do it. I got this. I was like, all right, fine. I'll tell you what, I'll get started. I'll create the website. I'll do this. I started. So I just took the reins and just said, I'll go ahead and do this, but I need the help we need to establish like a little committee, because I'm not going to be able to come to every match, because I live further away from the pub than anyone, and by a long shot. So anyway, so we were able to establish the organizational structure, and we had to tinker with it for a little while until we make it work. But it really takes a team of individuals to delegate to get all the work done. And no one person should be doing everything, and no one person should have the control. So I always tell everyone that, I might be the president, but I'm only the president because no one else wanted to do it when we started. And then I made the connections with the club, with the liaison, and do all the administrative work, get all that stuff done, and manage the website. And you guys do everything else, do all the social media. We throw that onto Colin. He can do all the social media he wants. We run the treasury. Sean can do that. Pub liaison. Darren, you go ahead and do that kind of stuff. So it's just a matter of making sure everyone's got a little bit of a job to do, and just communicate with each other. So, which we do a really good job of.
What is the biggest challenge, like, as you're going through, especially on the side that I guess you kind of focused on in terms of, like, I guess the administrative side of things? Like, what is the biggest challenge?
Well, that's a really good question. The biggest challenge, I would say, is just basically communication. And so when you start off small, all right, you want to get the word out to everyone, right? You don't care who hears about it. You want people to know about Liverpool. You want people to know about the events you're having, right? We're going to have a holiday party. Come on, all are invited. Maybe, like I said, the casual guy to come in from out of town. The casual person doesn't know a whole lot about it. And we do have supporters that have joined our club because of this. They just say, hey, you guys this is kind of cool. This is awesome, and maybe I'll join, maybe I'll, that kind of thing, and become a Liverpool fan. So, but you want everyone to know about all that. You don't want, you don't want to be selective, but as you grow, right. And as we get members, we have probably, between 150 to 200 paid members now. And which is mind boggling to me when I think about how we started, not even that long ago. But over 150 people have chosen to give us dues for the year to become a paid member of LFC Raleigh. So how do we get the word out so that if we're going to have a special event, that only the paid members get first dibs on buying tickets or doing whatever? And a great example of that was Champions League final, right? So we have a restriction. The pub can only have so many people there. You only can have 400 people capacity before the fire marshal is going to shut you down, which nobody wants. So how do we manage that? Well, at that point in time, you can't just blast it out on social media. Hey, everyone, VIP tickets are going on sale, because then any schmuck can go up there and buy them. And so you kind of want to, that's the hardest part, is figuring out how can you communicate, not only just what your club is doing for the community, what your club is doing for Liverpool in the Raleigh market, but also how you can communicate to your paid members that are kind of there for being part of the club and being associated with all the people that are members of the club. So that's a challenge, really, because the more numbers you get, the harder it is to manage that. And then, of course, there's always someone like, oh, I didn't get the email, or I didn't hear about this. So I always feel guilty about that. It's like, well, did you see the Facebook post? Did you see the tweet? Did you see the, that kind of stuff and that kind of thing. So
being in a city like Raleigh, obviously, a smaller city compared to some like the other like major metro cities, does that almost make it easier in a sense because if it's a more compact community where the word spreads faster, or does it make it harder because obviously the audience is smaller?
That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about if it's easy or hard because of the size. We used to think that it was more difficult, more of a challenge because we don't have the pool to tap into. But at the same time, the Raleigh Durham area has Chapel Hill, the Triangle they call it, is very well known as being a soccer hotbed, and so there's all tons of kids playing the sport, and they're all watching it on TV, playing it on FIFA, and all that other good stuff. And so there's a ton of opportunity for new fans to pick up on the sport. So while it's a smaller market per se, I think there's a higher percentage of potential football fans out of it. So, but the thing that we always try to pride ourselves on at our club, which is something I recommend to any other aspiring OLSC out there or any other existing OLSC out there, is the one thing that that we always kind of default to is trying to be as inclusive as possible. We want to make sure that yes, we have a pub, we have a home pub we always go to watch the matches at. Yes, we have an annual due structure. You pay the money, which right now is whatever, $25, $20, whatever it is. You get a scarf, but it also comes with the other events we go on throughout the year, which we can talk about, another time if you want. But we can't stop you from coming to a London Bridge pub to watch a Liverpool game, right? That's not our business. So you're more than welcome to come to the pub. We just hope that you like what we do and like what we offer, that you're just okay with paying us the $25 or $20 and coming to the match next week, because we're trying to create an environment where people not only do they want to come to watch the match, but they want to stay after the match, and they want to kind of connect with the other folks and tell different stories and so on and so forth. So I do, because Raleigh's a smaller market, that we do have a little bit more of that family mentality, so to speak. But again, it's hard to say if it's easier or difficult because of the size of our market. But we've done pretty good, so I guess I'd say it can't be that hard.
So what kind of activities do you guys do aside from, obviously you have the game days and the atmosphere in the pub, but do you guys do any charity work, anything along those lines?
Yeah, actually, we very, very active. We do have a community outreach person on our organizational committee that does stuff like that for the food banks and whatnot. We always raise money every year for the Christmas the holiday season for the Jamie Carragher's 23 Foundation. They're always very generous with giving us some donations on signed jerseys and stuff like that, and we're proud to say that every year every year since we've been doing, we've written a check for them for over $1,000 every year to give back to their foundation, which is we're very proud of that fact. But just last week for the Chelsea match, one of our members and a good friend of mine that also happens to live nearby for me, but Steve Kwasny, he was diagnosed early with prostate cancer a couple of years ago, got it treated, got it fixed, and he's on a personal quest to educate and to raise funding and awareness for prostate cancer. So he teams up with Pints for Prostates every year, and well, I should say every year. This is the second year we've done it at the Chelsea match, and we give him a venue to put his table down. They're an organization, I guess it's national, and they raise money for that and awareness. And I want to say we do a matching donation. So if all the members that go to the pub that day, for every beer that's being bought, a percentage goes to the charity, stuff like that. And then we do raffles and we give that stuff away. And I think we we're giving we raised close to $1,500 for the organization this year. And then of course we don't match it. We give, I think we're doing a donation of about $200, from our organization. But what we kind of do it in conjunction with one of the things that we've instituted a couple of years ago, which we call Match of the Month, which is something that every month, myself, Sean, and Colin will get together. We'll look at the schedule when the TV fixtures are updated, and we say, what month do we want to do this? And we'll do a raffle. or we'll do something, and we'll pick one match and we'll say, we're going to raffle off this signed Bruce Grobbelaar book, or we're going to raffle off this. It doesn't cost anything to enter. You just got to be a paid member. And so you bring your membership card to the match, you get a raffle ticket, and we'll give it away. So we just try to encourage people to come. But for September, our match of the month is Pints for Prostates. So your first beer was on the club. So if you're a paid member, we got you a Carlsberg. Your first Carlsberg was on us, I should say. So stuff like that. So we're pretty active in doing that, and we're more than happy to facilitate any type of charitable cause. If someone comes to us and says, "Hey, can you guys help us with this, or can we do something like that?" Just we're more than happy to kind of discuss and try to schedule something, try to get it to work out.
And I know you personally have a lot of experience in terms of like going to like several different like Liverpool pubs. And before that sounds bad, let me correct that. But I mean, you've written a book based on your experiences of going to different like Liverpool Reds clubs. That's your first book, and I know your second one is coming out right now. Well, let's talk about the first one first, in terms of how writing that book probably helped you at least get ideas in terms of like creating an atmosphere that people are going to want to come over and over again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was the first book. Thank you for asking. Was Walking Through the Storm is what I called it. What it's titled. It is available on Amazon. But essentially, what the intent of the book was for me to go around to visit as many different pubs in North America that I could economically and feasibly do, and focusing on the Liverpool supporters clubs and getting to meet the folks. And one of the things that I loved about writing the book was probably half of the pubs I visited, I didn't know anyone before I went there. I picked a location, or I worked it into my schedule somehow and said, I'm going to go to Austin, Texas. We talked about Stephen earlier. I didn't know Stephen. I didn't know any of the guys down in Austin. I just said, I know Austin's a cool town. I've always wanted to go there. They also have a club down in San Antonio. That's a short drive. I can do a Wednesday, Saturday kind of thing. So that's how I kind of scheduled it. So I would just go down there and just let them know in advance, hey, I'm coming down. I'm writing this book. I want to document the experience, blah, 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 blah. And I would just show up to the pub and just start talking to people. And everyone was just, their stories are so incredible that there's, like I said, there's thousands of different stories that people have as to why they picked Liverpool to be their club. And to me, that was fascinating. But just as fascinating was finding out about how these clubs came to be, why they picked this particular pub, how this pub, found the club, how do they work together. And I guess part of it was also a learning lesson for myself to how can I take what I've learned from the group in LA or the group in Austin, the group in Miami, and figure out like, okay, these are what they do. I like this. How can I bring that to Raleigh and make our club that much better? But the book itself was a lot of fun to write. It was a good challenge, and basically it's set on the 2015 and 16 season, where we start off at the beginning of the year, and I just kind of follow a diary throughout the entire season, right up until when Brendan Rodgers is fired, and then Klopp comes in, and then throughout the rest of the year to the Europa League final, and all throughout the year, just going to various different bars and just different pubs and meeting new friends. And I think in every city I went to, and every pub I went to, I've got friends that I've seen more than once, whether it be in their hometown again, or it be running into them at Fenway Park for the preseason, or whatever. It's part of the family, the part of being part of the Liverpool family, which I love. One other plug about that book, which is what I liked doing, was kind of what you're doing with your website, with the map and trying to get the different pubs around the country. I was doing the same thing. I put a glossary at the back with all the different states, and one of the running themes, which I've learned, which is very difficult, is very important for people to understand this, is that not every state has the same drinking laws on Sundays. You can't necessarily drink at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning in a particular state. So you learn these things. So I kind of looked up the different state laws in terms of that, but also in each state, what pubs do I know that are Liverpool friendly or have Liverpool supporters clubs, or unofficial or official? So you can kind of look and say, I'm doing this trip to Idaho. Was there anything in Idaho that I can go to? To try to make it like a little handy guide for that. So kind of what you're trying to do with the map on the website.
Yeah, because we were talking like before we started recording the podcast. I almost feel like a lot of fans don't even know the locations in their city, like the city they live in. Leave alone when they're visiting another city, like where to be able to go and like enjoy a game with other Reds fans while they're out of town on vacation for business or whatever. So it's definitely like a valuable resource, I think. And that's probably the most commonly asked question. Any Facebook group like I was in, that was always like the most asked question. Like, I'm going to be in Austin. Where should I go? I'm going to be here. Where should I go? And stuff like that. And sometimes, sometimes people jump in and answer, but sometimes those go unanswered. And I think that's why like the map keeps is like a good resource for that. So I assume, based on like the number of locations you visited, was the biggest challenge kind of like narrowing down the stories to pick to write about?
The biggest challenge was saying no. It was telling people, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to go out to San Diego and visit your pub, or as much as I would love to do it. Unfortunately, I have a job, and my primary source of revenue is not by writing books. As much as I would love it to be that way, but yeah, the biggest challenge was trying to just kind of say no and just say, all right, I can't go out of town this particular weekend, and trying to focus on going to the places that made sense, that I could fit in with my work schedule, or I could fit in to visit family, for example, over the holidays. I can make sure that I can, do a little side trip, during this particular little trip or whatever, just go hit this pub, that kind of thing. So yeah, there were, dozens of cities I wanted to go to and pubs that I wanted to go to that I never got around to. But as I kind of told, I was fortunate enough to get an interview on the Infield Wrap plugging the first book, and they said, this leaves room for a sequel. And I said, well, that this is true. So,
So is the second book almost a sequel? Is it like same locations revisited, or is it like brand new locations, or how did you come about with like the second book?
No, yeah, the second book, I had the intention of doing like the first book, where I was going to start hitting other pubs. And actually, the way I had done it was more like a diary in terms of documenting how the season was going and various different things of that nature. But the very first part of the season, and actually it was my birthday weekend, we were scheduled to play Spurs. It was going to be the home opener for their new stadium. It was middle of September. I had a flight, and my wife and I were going up for a weekend in Philadelphia. And unfortunately, the Hurricane Florence came through North Carolina at that time, and so we had to cancel the trip. So I ended up just watching the game from my living room, because obviously, the weather conditions weren't friendly for us. So that was kind of like a bummer. But I was, at that point, I just kind of wasn't 100% sold on the idea of doing the same thing that I did the first time. Right? Do I really want to spend my free weekends, flying out to various locations alone? My wife couldn't necessarily afford to come with me on everything. All these trips. So I just started kind of just taking notes and documenting how the season was going, because I kind of sensed that something special was happening. That after the way that we had lost to Real Madrid, in Kiev, you just kind of had that feeling that, okay, something special is going to happen here, and maybe we finally get the chance at that glory. And as the song goes, is that when you walk through a storm, you hold your head up high. At the end of the storm is the golden sky. So I was kind of prepared for the eventuality of us winning, which is why the book is going to be titled The Golden Sky. But if we didn't win, then I was just going to call the book Holding Our Heads Up High, because we're finally at the point where we can walk around with our heads held up high and saying, we're Liverpool, deal with it. You're going to have to come to Anfield and take it to us. But it worked out. We had we hold old big ears up at the end of the season, and we got to see that golden sky. So that is the title of the new book, which hopefully will be out the next week or so.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have links to those along with this podcast under your guys' group's information for any readers to kind of like access and definitely take a look at your books. I'll be honest, I definitely like took a peek at it. I have not ordered mine and read it yet, but the concept is definitely very interesting, especially since I'm doing these like interview podcasts. I think it would be definitely an interesting read. Like I say, I'm sure you had a ton of material to choose from, even with like the limited number of like places you could eventually end up going to. So any other thoughts, any suggestions, any parting thoughts for like other cities that are looking to create a supporter club, or even if even if they're not looking to get official, best ways to kind of like gather people together? I mean, obviously social media is a huge help, but I know there's a lot more to it than just creating a page and kind of like throwing the rod out there and waiting for the fish to hit.
So, yeah, the couple things. The first one is that, the old saying, it truly does take a village. You really do have to have some help. Don't try to do it yourself. If you're a huge Liverpool fan and you want to start a club, you obviously the club has to have other members, but get other folks to help you out. Don't do all the work yourself. The second thing, which is hugely important, is that to remember you're not taking a path that hasn't been taken already by 60 other supporters clubs in North America. So, there's tons of resources in terms of people that will, myself included, that would more than gladly give you advice. I gave copies of our organizational charters to a couple other aspiring clubs because they asked, and happy to do it, because you can use it as a guide, and it's already been blessed and approved by the powers that be up at Liverpool. So, but the last one, which I kind of take, not personally, but I really kind of think it's very important, which is kind of what we feel at Raleigh, which was really kind of attributed to our growth success in a short period of time, is basically being more inclusive than exclusive, right? So, like I said earlier, we can't tell people that they can't come to the London Bridge pub to watch a match. I mean, it's not our job to do that. It's not our business to do that. But we certainly hope that you're going to like what we're doing there, and you're going to be willing to just hand over your money and join our club and be a part of the fun that we have. Too many clubs that shall remain nameless, have got that mentality of, how do we protect, the people that have been with us the longest, we're exclusive, we're special, try to avoid that elitist mentality. And honestly, I'd say I shouldn't, it's not fair for me to say too many clubs. I'm just saying in general that type of attitude is probably not healthy to try to grow. And there are certainly times that if you get to a pretty big size, that there is going to have to be some measures in place. So I get all that, but my advice definitely is be welcoming. That you don't know that people that are just happen to stop into the pub because just let me get a beer. I remember one of our members was just kind of like, I said, how did you become a Liverpool fan? He's like, I was going to law school and a buddy of mine that, was coming down to watch a soccer match. And I said, what? You're down here at 8:00 in the morning on a Saturday drinking beer? Okay, let's do it. That kind of thing. And he just became a fan. He's like, I had no idea soccer would be this much fun to be a fan of. So yeah, just, for other clubs out there aspiring, I would just, don't ever forget the roots, be inclusive, be welcoming to everyone. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's like one of the biggest things a supporter club should kind of like focus on is, especially the newer fans. I know the newer success will bring some, bandwagon fans, but there's also some just new fans that enjoy, our brand of football and the passion that, the fans have. And I think it's important to kind of like teach those people about the club and kind of like welcome in. And that's, I think, most of how, you're going to grow your supporter club and your fan base overall, which grows your supporter club even more. So, Ken, thank you for your time. Definitely appreciate it. Be in touch with us. Let us know when the new book is out. It'll definitely be on the site as well. Thank you for your time. And thanks to all those for listening. Stay tuned for other spotlights of other sporter clubs. And hey, follow us on Facebook as well, our LFC America Facebook group, as well as on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you soon.